So Big Balls lived up to his name, took on 8 different people that were beating on a woman. I believe it was a carjacking. Matt Vance Wall, a good follow, says, definition of a man deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom. How can you not love big balls? What a guy. That's a lot of capitals and exclamation marks, Matt, but they are well deserved. Big Balls deserves the Medal of Freedom. I would agree. Let's do a poll. I'm going to end the poll about me joining ICE. I think we have our answer there. Does Big Balls deserve the Medal of Freedom? Yes, no. I'd say the Medal of Honor, except, of course, he's not serving against America's enemies. But is not every American citizen a member of the militia? Was he not serving against America's enemies when he defended this woman against this pack of feral thugs? But certainly the Medal of Freedom seems appropriate here. Eric says he likely saved that woman's life. And for a kid who runs kind of thin, he looks pretty good for having taken on 8 guys. He definitely lives up to his name. Now, I got to say, runs kind of thin. Guys, this is what I looked at, what I looked like, except I believe I was much taller than him. This is a pretty fit dude. You think of these DOGE guys, you think of them like they're all nerds, living in mom's basement, playing computer games all day. This guy's in pretty damn good shape. I expect he's doing pretty well with the ladies down in Washington, D.C., and good for him. Good for him. Tommy says, I hope they find the people who attacked him and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. It would have to be felony charges. I think misdemeanor charges would be handled by the local D.C. politicians. I think that's how that's done. An attorney general, federal attorney general, only gets involved if it's a felony charge. But if I'm incorrect about that, someone can correct me. But I believe that's how they work the weird system down there. Okay, next tab I have. Breaking. Ed Coristine, a.k.a. Big Balls, was the DOGE hero that saved the woman being assaulted in her car in D.C. Multiple sources confirm Big Balls really lived up to his name here. Multiple teens surrounded teens. Anyone have any trouble? We can play a game with this, right? If I were to ask you, I'm going to say a name, and then I want you to think in your head about the image that pops in when you hear that name. So if I say plumber, what pops into your head? Right? Some guy with a crescent wrench, with a monkey wrench, I should say. Some butt crack exposed, right? Dirty clothes. If I were to say fireman, what pops into your head? If I were to say police officer, what image pops into your head? If I were to say a pack of feral hyena thugs surround a lone woman in Washington, D.C. to carjack her, what image pops into your head? Is anybody imagining that the people who did this, the ferals who engaged in this conduct, were part of this community? Anybody think this pack of feral hyenas attacking this woman for her car were members of the Amish community? I think probably not, right? I think probably not. We may never know the DEI behind this feral gang of thugs. So multiple teens. By the way, I've heard that some of these were like 14 years old, I think. Wouldn't surprise me. Folks, in these urban centers, America's hellhole urban centers run by Democrats for decades, with zero accountability for anyone from the lowest street level to the highest levels of government. 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds murder each other by the score every weekend. These are killers. Teens my ass. Multiple teens surrounded the woman's car, attempted to carjack her, and Big Balls, seeing this happen, stepped in to save her, suffered this beating. We have another story of someone who stepped in recently, right? I covered this. The woman at the jazz festival in Cincinnati stepped in to see to a man who was being beaten and stomped in the street. This is what she got for her trouble: traumatic brain injury. A woman quickly punched by two other women of diversity, and then sucker punched by a man in the face, knocked her unconscious into the street. I think that man has now been arrested. This is him. This is the guy who threw that punch. Patrick Rosemond. Oh my God, I can't believe a nice Amish boy like him would do something like that. Is there a pattern? Is there a pattern? It often seems like there's a pattern. So weird. Of course, we also have this story. Someone who stepped in to help innocent people who were receiving credible threats of death from a lunatic while they're all trapped in a subway car. Now, he didn't suffer any physical injury. They only tried to put this poor guy, Daniel Penny, in prison for the rest of his life. For the rest of his life. Got acquitted, but no one knew that was going to be the outcome. Certainly, he didn't know. Multiple teens. Edward Coristine, known affectionately as Big Balls, is a patriot. He was ambushed by a mob of 8 black teens. Well, he inserted himself to save an innocent woman. Part of the unchecked chaos of our ruling class in Washington, D.C., this isn't just lawlessness. It's sanctioned decay, and it's unbearable. 8 black men, now they're not teens anymore, tried to assault a young woman alone in her car late at night in D.C. Big Balls tried to get them to stop, so naturally the pack of black men assaulted him too, because of course they did. In other words, just another night in the modern American city. And they're quoting here Patrick Casey. Edward Coristine, also known as Big Balls, is a great guy and a patriot, recently attacked by 8 black teenagers who the D.C. political class allowed to rampage throughout the city. Totally unacceptable. And I personally saw this, by the way, when I was in D.C. Just earlier this year with my wife, with my kids. We're going to look at all the monuments and having the cherry blossoms were out. It was lovely. But as soon as the sun starts going down, gangs of young black feral thugs come out on scooters and bicycles and just start racing them everywhere in a reckless manner. I've got an 8-year-old with me. It's threatening harm, completely out of control, and no one intervenes and does anything, not even law enforcement. It is absolute madness. Elon Musk. And we'll read Trump's post here as well. A few days ago, a gang of about a dozen young men tried to assault a woman in her car at night in D.C. A DOGE team member, you think Big Balls is ever going to be in need of a job in his life? I mean, he was already well enough respected by Elon to be on DOGE. You think Elon's ever going to let this guy not have a job? A DOGE team member saw what was happening, ran to defend her, and was severely beaten to the point of concussion, which is traumatic brain injury, of course, but he saved her. It's time to federalize D.C. And of course, until 1973, in other words, for nearly 200 years, Washington, D.C. was federalized. And then we idiotically handed over local control to the locals. Donald Trump writes on Truth Social, crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local Utes, and gang members, some only 14, 15, 16 years old. And by the way, what do you think happens if they get caught doing this stuff? Nothing. Zero accountability. Are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens with a capital C. At the same time, knowing they will be almost immediately released. They are not afraid of law enforcement because they know nothing ever happens to them. But it's going to happen now. The law in DC must be changed to prosecute these minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. I would say, Mr. President, with all due respect, starting at whatever age they're committing these crimes. If you're doing adult crimes, you do adult time. I don't care if you're 11. Why should 11, 12, 13-year-old feral thugs have a license to kill people? Productive, innocent, law-abiding people. The most recent victim, Trump writes, was beaten mercilessly by local thugs. That's big balls. Washington, D.C. must be safe, clean, and beautiful for all Americans, and importantly, for the world to see. If D.C. doesn't get its act together, and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run the city how it should be run. Imagine how much safer D.C. would be under the control of a President Donald J. Trump. And put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Perhaps it should have been done a long time ago, certainly. Then this incredible young man and so many others would not have had to go through the horrors of violent crime. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize this city. Make America great again. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. Thanks for watching this highlight segment of our full-length Law of Self-Defense live stream. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to give us a like and subscribe for more expert analysis on politics, law, and how to be hard to convict. And to watch the full-length episode of this show, just click right here. Stay safe.